Tanya. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our Wednesday webinar. Today, I'm excited. We have two individuals that run economic development agencies in Nova Scotia. We have Angelique LeBlanc, who's the CEO of the Western Regional Enterprise Network. She's been the CEO since 2014. Angelique has over 15 years experience in the economic and business development sectors of Nova Scotia, along with 6 years of teaching abroad. After she returned to Canada, she worked as the manager of business development and entrepreneurship center at the Université de Sainte Anne. Hopefully I didn't butcher that too bad, where she regularly worked in partnership with government representatives, the private sector, and the not-for-profit organization. Angelique has an MBA through the Université de Moncton and continues to work with both private and public sector partners in her role with the Western Regional Economic Network. Also with us, we have Michelle Wilson, who was born and raised in Whitney Pier, Cape Breton. She has a Bachelor of Science degree with a major in psychology from Dalhousie University and has had a wide range of jobs over the years. The most pivotal one was when she opened her business in 2005 in downtown Sydney. To make a long story short, she sold it to a brilliant young lady in 2014, and a couple of months later was hired as the Sydney Downtown Development Association CEO, and she hasn't looked back. So welcome, Angelique and Michelle, and I think what we'll do is just hop right into the questions. We only have half an hour, and as our previous webinars, the half an hour flies by. And we also would like the opportunity to take some questions, if any, from the audience. So perhaps, Angelique, I'll start with you. Can you tell us a little bit about what your organization does in your region?
Sure. So the Western Regional Enterprise Network is funded by two levels of government, both provincial and municipal. And our role is to do economic and business development on a regional level. So our region is southwestern end of the province. So we have all of Digby and Yarmouth counties, as well as the municipality of Barrington in our region. So that's 5 municipal units and 2 towns. We are one of 7 RENs across the province. So we are a network that work quite closely together. And we have a lot of commonalities. We all are there to provide leadership in regional economic development. We all foster a culture of entrepreneurship with a focus on youth and, of course, rural business across the province. We're a source of on-the-ground business intelligence, and we do work very closely with our partners, both in private sector and in public sector. We are the boots on the ground, and we really are a true network. We work with multiple partners who work in that space, different organizations, associations, sector groups in our region. And we do take the wrong door approach. So we work closely with our partners. So if we get inquiries, when we get inquiries coming from our clients, from the business community, we have those relationships with our partners that we're able to quickly connect dots and bring the right people to the table. All the RENs in the province will have a slightly different lens in which they approach economic development and business development, depending on their particular area. The Western REN, we have a focus in 3 areas, very high level. So we're looking at increasing investment in private sector, increasing investment in public sector, and addressing talent needs. So I know that those are all things that would resonate across the province and beyond.
Great, thank you very much. Michelle, could you tell us a little bit about the Downtown Sydney Corporation?
I would love to. The Sydney Downtown Development Association was incorporated in 1989. And of course, we're a not-for-profit organization, and we are a business improvement district. A lot of people don't know what they are. There are thousands of them around the world, and our mandates are generally the same: to promote commercial activity in the area that we represent and carry out beautification initiatives. We represent a set number of boundaries that determines our catchment area and the businesses that we represent. So all commercially assessed properties and the commercial tenants therein are considered our members. So our area, I don't know if anybody is on the call from the Cape Breton area, but if you're familiar, our area runs right from our beautiful waterfront up to George Street and Dorchester to Townsend Streets. We have a service agreement with the Cape Breton Regional Municipality, whereas they collect a levy on top of the property taxes, and then that in turn is paid back to us through a monthly payment. So this gives us our base operating budget, and on top of that, we manage a parking lot that gives us a little bit of extra income. So this base amount allows us to leverage other funding for other initiatives in the downtown core, such as beautification, events, and advocacy, and all sorts of fun things like that. So that's us.
Excellent. So, Michelle, the first question I have is for you. I know in Sydney, there was a major development plan for 2020, 2021 with the redevelopment of the hospital and moving the NSCC campus to the waterfront. And we heard from the Cape Breton Partnership last week that these projects are still planned. What other economic opportunities do you see in Sydney, and what will the impact of this pandemic be on those projects?
Well, luckily for us, as you mentioned, those projects are moving forward. On top of those, they just recently started work on the Horizon Achievement Center, which is not exactly in downtown Sydney, but it's, just past Openhearth Park, which is not far from downtown. So, any construction staff that are working there right now, hopefully are, buying lunches at our local restaurants and such. And eventually that's going to be a beautiful new location for that organization. They've been working out of a, not as great location for a very long time. Also, the second berth for our cruise ships is ready to go. And I guess we definitely are impacted by the pandemic when it comes to the cruise industry. As many of you know, that the entire season is postponed until July. And I know there are at least a couple, maybe a few cruise lines who have, canceled, their calls for the year. So while we were supposed to have record numbers this year, it won't be, unfortunately, but I hope that this will be a blip in our radar and we'll look back on it someday and it'll be a distant memory. Also, 2021, we are looking at an entire reconstruction of Charlotte Street, our main street here in Cape Breton.
Oh.
And so the plans for that are really exciting, and we've been working a really long time with the CBRM planning department and of course other partners around the table to keep moving that forward. It's going to be a major investment, and I think we're going to have to do a lot of legwork and partnerships to get the full meal deal, as I like to call it. Also, yesterday, CBRM approved a 2-year beautification initiative, which had been previously canceled a few years ago across CBRM. So while we've been able to carry out our own, the more beautification, the better, including downtown. So another opportunity, and it's not like a major construction, but we've got a few buildings downtown, and one of them is currently for sale. And I've spoken to a couple real estate agents just recently, and a couple of them really have a lot of nostalgia attached to them. So it would be fantastic to see property owners who are, truly motivated to fill their spaces with local businesses who add to the experience and the vibrancy downtown. So it would be nice to have property owners that would work with us and CBRM, Cape Breton Partnership, the chamber, to help move us in that right direction. So I see that as an opportunity.
Sure, that's excellent. So, can you just expand a little bit on the Beautification Project? What exactly would that entail?
So, as far as what CBRM passed yesterday, they're looking at mainly flowers and banners.
Mhm.
To They felt it was really important for people to feel better when they are out, when we finally are getting out more. So, and I've done a lot of research because I've been involved in beautification since I first started the job. I kind of enjoy gardening. So anyway, they are bringing that back, but we've also done beautification in downtown Sydney. So a couple of years ago, we put out Adirondack chairs. We had them painted in our vibrant brand colors. We added some very basic pedestrian directional signage
Mhm.
and added lots of flowers. We did, last year we started what we call Adopt a Barrel. So similar to PEI in Charlottetown, they do Adopt a Corner. So I spoke with Dawn, the executive director there, and she gave me some pointers. So last year we were able to raise, I don't know, upwards of $15,000 to $20,000 in a very short amount of time for that. So that really added some vibrancy to downtown, and we had little signs made that went on the barrels recognizing all the people contributing to that. So we had big plans for this year, but I'm not even putting my chairs out because I can't provide that hand washing. So that was a disappointment for sure.
I think it's going to be a new world for all of us for this year, but hopefully we'll come back strong and fast in 2021. So, Angelique, I have a question for you. We know the western part of the province is rich in natural resources and opportunities for growth and entrepreneurs. It's also an extremely beautiful place to live. How do you see moving forward from the pandemic to stimulate growth in your region in terms of population through immigration and new or expanded businesses?
Yeah, so the Western region has been experiencing a declining population for quite some time. Again, similar to most areas around Nova Scotia. So we're seeing the outmigration of residents, and the bulk have been working families. So that's part of the demographic that we're losing. So that leaves us with a shortage of workers. Hence the focus on labor market issues. And in Western Nova Scotia, the situation is a little bit more acute. So some stats for you. So the average annual decline has been 0.74% per year over the past 15 years. And this one is really, it's scary when you stop and think about it, but over the coming years, we have about over 15,000 of the region's labor force who are expected to retire. So we have that acute need for labor. So addressing the issue is extremely complex. There's no one thing you can do to fix that, but immigration is definitely a big part of that solution. So the Western Wren, we are a partner in the Atlantic Immigration Pilot Program.
Mm-hmm.
So we play a role in coordinating and attracting and retaining immigrant workers through this program. There are a number of partners around the province. In Halifax Partnership, in Cape Breton, it would be the Cape Breton Partnership, and then we do this end of the province. So it's an employer-facing program, and once they are designated for the program, they can then move on and they can recruit the labor that they're looking for internationally. So to give you an idea of what that looks like on our end of the region, immigration, I would say, from an employer perspective, has been gaining traction over the past few years. So right now we have about 60 plus companies who have been designated through the program. So we've started to see international workers who are arriving in the region. So our forecast for 2020 alone was that translated into the potential of about 140 workers. And the great thing about this program is that it enables them to bring in their families as well. So in terms of, kids coming in and filling up the schools, and then their spouses looking for work in the region as well. So that is something that, we see employers that are still moving forward with their AIP plans, and they're still looking to recruit. But of course, COVID puts a question mark on everything. But that was the anticipation for 2020. And that's, of course, in addition to those who have already arrived. And we do have a program as well at the Western Run and our partners would across the province called the Connector Program. And I think that's a great program for your group to have on your radar as well, because that program helps new arrivals to the region, and that can be immigrants. It can be boomerangers, so the folks who are from the region, but they're coming back now, maybe in their later years to kind of wind down a little bit, and also for recent grads. So the Connector Program helps them do some intentional networking. So it's to help them build that network locally and uncover what we call the hidden job market. So as you well know, it's oftentimes it's who you know, and so-and-so is looking for work and this position is available, and making those matches. So that program has worked really great. And in terms of retention of the folks who are arriving in our region, that's been a gem of a program as well. And we also have another program that we operate, we've operated since the beginning, called the Business Now program. So that is a wayfinding program or a navigational program that's designed to help businesses navigate resources that are out there to support them. So to support them in their growth, uncovering new opportunities. Sometimes they're experiencing challenges, so to help them through those challenges. And for the past couple of months, that program really has focused to have a COVID-19 specific focus. So we've been focusing on helping local businesses navigate programming and identify the issues. And then now we're transitioning over to supporting them with resources, to find resources in terms of reopening and guidelines and things like that. So, and then one last program that I think is relevant to this group as well is the succession program. So we operate this program with a focus of helping businesses become sale ready. So it's about getting them to plan ahead. So, the things that are important to selling a business, transitioning a business, valuation, make sure all the debt in the business is settled. Oftentimes it's about choosing and working with successors. They could be employees, other members in the community. And it's so important to our region to address the succession issue as well, because it's important to maintain those supply chains locally. Yes. We want to maintain that wealth in our region. Mm-hmm. And when you're talking about opportunities for new arrivals or recent grads, some of these opportunities really can be turnkey. So we're hoping to get businesses in the best shape possible when they are ready for that sale. So we have a number of tools, I guess, in our toolkit to support business growth and immigration.
Awesome. So you touched on a couple of things there I'd like to follow up a little bit on. You said you had a significant amount of your workforce retiring over the next few years. What sort of jobs are they retiring from that might attract folks to your area to fill? Following up on your succession planning. Do you have a sense of what they are?
I think it's varied. It's pretty much across all sectors, but I think some of the sector that would feel it acutely as well is going to be in the fishing industry. When you look at some of the processors, I mean, they're just desperate to find workers, and a lot of their most skilled workers. I mean, filleting a fish is an art, and I think it's an art that really is being lost. So there's a huge gap there. So again, working with employers and the Atlantic Immigration Pilot Program really is an opportunity for year-round permanent employment. So there is an opportunity there, but it is beyond, fishing sector and fish processing. There's a need for engineers. There's a need for lots of skilled workers as well. So I would say that it really is, there's no sector that it wouldn't be applicable.
So we all know that Develop Nova Scotia is working in conjunction with the provincial government to roll out high-speed internet across the province. With their push, I guess, to roll it out, I would suspect that the getting high-speed internet in certain parts of your region that you cover would help attract folks to your region, especially young entrepreneurs who rely on high-speed internet to run, perhaps a business out of their home or out of their garage or a small storefront.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's been a huge piece for us in terms of that investing in public sector. So we've been working closely with a number of our municipalities on the rural internet issue for the past 2 to 3 years. And I am happy to say that in our region, in the municipality of Clare, there are 4,600 residences and businesses who will soon have access to high-speed internet. And we've had 4 other projects announced in the region that are going to reach 2,200 civic addresses by the end of 2020, with an expectation of an even larger amount in this round 2 of funding through the feds and the province. So that is critical. And I know, again, in your world that you see that all the time and you hear
Well,
that
it's
all the time.
something that NSAR has lobbied the provincial government on for at least 5 years now. So we were happy to see that they put the funding towards that, because our members would tell us, we've lost deals because, we have a buyer who wants to move here, set up shop, and then when they find out there's no high-speed internet, the deal falls through. So we were very pleased that they're rolling that out, and I think it will help with the development of attracting folks to all parts of Nova Scotia, not just the Sydneys and Halifaxes of Nova Scotia. So I have a question from the audience. I'm going to hop into that before we do our general question. And this question is for Michelle, related to the downtown Sydney area. Do you foresee a facade program in the near future, and more than just on Charlotte Street?
So we had, when we were working on our regeneration initiative for a couple years, that ended just a while back. We're just finishing our last project for that. One of the big things that the National Trust for Canada pushes is bringing back that historic character of a downtown. And so we had, and ACOA was funding the initiative. So we had reached out to ACOA to see if they would look at doing a facade program, but maybe a little bit improved from the previous one. So we were told that they didn't do facade programs. So we did up a 1-pager, which turned into like a 5-pager. We did not use the word facade anywhere in the document, and it was still refused. So as far as federal funding, it's not looking good. The provincial program, the beautification and streetscaping, allows for a little bit, but it's not a lot of money, when you're looking at, facade improvements for buildings. So unfortunately, it's not looking good right now. And I thought that the recent announcement from the federal government through ACOA for some Main Street development might have been something along those lines, but it wasn't. So unfortunately, not anything that I'm aware of right now as far as facade. Sorry.
Maybe what will happen is what is happening in Yarmouth. I know one of our members has taken it upon himself to buy some of the older historic buildings and really, for lack of a better word, spruce them up and put them back into their old character. And what a difference it makes, on a street to see a building that's somewhat run down be turned around and brought back to its vibrant self when it was originally built. It makes a huge difference. So maybe those 2 buildings you were talking about, where you could maybe find a buyer and they could spruce them up and open up a cafe or some other little shop on the street.
They're big.
Storefront. Well, you could divide it up.
Cafes in them.
Investment opportunity.
To your point about Yarmouth, Pam Mood spoke at a conference I attended a couple years ago, and she's the mayor of Yarmouth, for anyone who's not familiar. And they run a program through their municipality, but I don't know, no, they're a town. I'm not really familiar with Yarmouth. So they run it through their development agency, similar to ours. But where we're a municipality representing several downtowns, it's a bit of a hard sell. And the municipality is not allowed under the MGA to give money directly to private business property owners, whatever. So.
Okay. So we're running out of time. I told you a half an hour would go by very quickly. We have a question for both of you, and I'll let you decide which order you would like to go in. So what does getting back to business mean in your region, and how does that help recover from the impacts of COVID-19? So Michelle, you're unmuted. Perhaps I'll let you go first. Yeah, just what does getting back to business look like in downtown Sydney?
Well, I think for us, the question may be twofold. As an organization with a mandate to promote commercial activity, we have been talking about how we're going to do this, and it's definitely challenging. I know there's talk in other areas in the United States and other places in Canada where they're looking at, closing sections of, the downtown and, creating plazas and things like this to add seating outdoors to assist the restaurants, so people still have that experience. However, on a call with Dr. Strang, when I asked about it, the whole gathering of more than 5 people is not permitted. So he was not really supportive of that. And in speaking with just 2 business owners on our main street, one was vehemently against it. And his point was that we are now like a pick up and go type economy for the time being, where people are afraid, some people don't want to, even be within 20 feet of somebody else.
Sure.
So, that might ease the fear that you can still pull up in front of the business, get your item and leave. I got a call from another business owner just a block or 2 away saying, how can I help block off a section of Charlotte Street to create, the outdoor dining space? Anyway, so we have to be very careful as an organization. As I mentioned, we're not even putting out our chairs. We're trying to help spread the message from public health and our government and be partners in that. But in saying that, we'll have to then be more creative in how we attract people to shop downtown. So we're still working on a couple ideas. We had a couple ideas, but then, we realized that this 6-foot rule was going to be in effect for a very long time. So anyway, back to the drawing board a little bit, but anyway, it's not impossible. On the other side, our businesses are being forced to come up with an alternative way of operating. So when I look at the business I owned and sold, it's a bridal salon. So, how do you zip somebody up and, get them in a wedding gown from 6 feet away? So anyway, I may have shed a couple tears with Brittany, but anyway, you know what, they're just being creative and innovative and finding ways to make their customers feel safe and still finding ways to create that personalized, experience that you get from a small business. So it's absolutely challenging, but we've got some fantastic, people in our downtown, and, we'll work together and get through it.
No, I would agree with what you've said. Angelique.
And shop local.
Well, exactly. Angelique, business, back to business in your region. What does that look like?
Yeah, I think very similar to what Michelle just went over. It's going to be extremely challenging for certain sectors to bounce back. I mean, retail, accommodation, anybody who's in event planning, but it's definitely an opportunity for it's right now it's what's called disruptive innovation. So when something like COVID-19 hits, people have no choice other than to innovate. So yes, we're going to see, given that we do have access to reliable internet, that's going to become even more important than before for our business community to have those online platforms and use social media, and the restaurants and outdoor dining venues, and making our towns places that people want to be and can be. I think, temporarily there are going to be those measures that have to be implemented, but long term, I think we're going to be left with some good things from this time of crisis. And I was also thinking about it, and I thought, in theory, the rural lifestyle should be a much easier sell now if we do have adequate infrastructure. The cost of living is good. We have friendly, skilled local talent. We have really short commute times in our region. That's 12.4 minutes is the average to get to work. The proximity to nature, I think it's just the space that we have, that it is pleasant and easy to isolate in a rural community. We are so close to nature. So I think that should be even more appealing now, post COVID-19.
I agree. Like we've NSBI and Halifax Partnership and the Cape Breton Partnership have sort of stuck to the acronym for selling the province as TLCI: talent, location, cost, and then innovation. And I think what I've taken away from this, which wasn't necessarily here in Nova Scotia even 5-7 years ago, is I am encouraged by the willingness of entrepreneurs and the population in general to learn, pivot, and innovate during this whole COVID, rather than just sit back and say, "Woe is me, we're doomed," and it's all doom and gloom. I'm amazed at how some of the businesses in Nova Scotia have pivoted to, the one example that immediately comes to mind is how some of the distillers pivoted and made hand sanitizer when there was such a shortage of that. And then you have Stanfield, who's been a company in Nova Scotia for eons, pivot to make garments for the nurses and whatnot. So, to me, that, and restaurants moving to curbside pickup and that sort of thing. So it's really great to see that they haven't given up. Like they're doing their best to move forward, and I think we'll come out of it better. I just don't know when that's going to be, but it is encouraging to see folks not put their head in the sand and pivot and move on. So there were a lot of great things happening in Nova Scotia. I think we're going to come out of this. It might be a year or more before we get back to where we were, but I think we'll get there. And it's nice to see everyone working together now, which is fantastic. And all three levels of government, hopefully they can keep that up as well, and it makes us stronger and better. So I don't see any other questions from the audience. So I do want to thank you for taking the time out of your day today. I know you're both very busy. It was a pleasure having you on, and I know we'll be working with you going forward in the future. So thank you very much, and have a great day.
Thanks for having us.
Hey,
Oh, you're more than welcome.
Take
Thank
care.
you. You too.